Hello, this is Brian Funk, and thank you for listening to the Music Production Podcast. I'm very excited to announce that my new book, The 5-Minute Music Producer, is now available in paperback form, a real book that you can hold and touch and turn to any page you like in a second. And it's a pretty big book, 629 pages of activities, exercises, and wisdom I've learned over the years. It's available on Amazon.com. The 5-Minute Music Producer is 365 music-making activities that will help with your songwriting and music production. It'll help you fight writer's block, make more music, write better lyrics, develop solid workflows, learn techniques for generating ideas, and finish more music. It's like having your very own music production personal trainer giving you ideas and challenges each day. And the best part is the challenges are quick and easy, and they only take a few minutes. So even if you don't have a lot of time, you can spend 5 minutes and advance your music production skills. There's no better time to improve your music than now. Imagine where you'll be after a year of these activities. The 5-Minute Music Producer has hit the #1 new release in the music songwriting and music recording and sound categories on Amazon. So check out the 5-Minute Music Producer, 365 music-making activities. It's available on Amazon.com, or you can go to brianfunk.com/book. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Music Production Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Funk. This is the show about all things related to making music. Today's guest is Kevin Breuner. He is the Senior Vice President of Artist and Engagement and Education at CD Baby. He's got 25 years of experience recording music, and as an industry professional, he helps artists to move their careers forward in the changing industry. I'm very excited to talk to him. He's got his own musical projects he's working on, and if you're watching this, you can see he's right in the middle of his studio where he's able to get right to work. So I think it's going to be a cool talk. Kevin, welcome to the show, man. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Yeah, nice to have you. So you are at your studio, you mentioned as we were talking, so you guys are all working from home now. It's the 100%
Yeah,
remote.
at CD Baby, we've been 100% remote since the pandemic. There's an office over by, the airport here in Portland that I could go into, but I'll be sitting there by myself. So it's just
right.
So we're all just working from home and for the foreseeable future. So yeah.
It's happened to a lot of people. I mean, sometimes you just realize, hey, we could do this, without going in.
Yeah.
And it didn't work so well. I'm a high school English teacher by day. That didn't work too well. Social interaction is really important for teenagers, especially. So,
well, and that's what I miss. It's important for adults too. I miss going in. I would like to go to a model of like maybe 2 days a week in the office,
right,
where you get that good team energy, and then can just some of the benefits of working from home are, some of the things that you spend less time in the car, which you can put more towards doing music stuff and other things. And so that's what's been nice about being home. But I do miss people.
Yeah. A lot of some of the best things I get at my job are just the kind of unplanned interactions you have with people, and you bounce ideas off each other.
And I think that's what's missed in sort of, a change in industry, especially for us at CD Baby. We've had so much just in the distribution marketplace. There's been so much change over the last couple of years. I think having some of those impromptu conversations and an idea pops into mind and you can bounce it off people. I think that's very important.
Yeah, in a changing world, right?
Yep.
So I used CD Baby back, I think it was like 2007, to put out a CD of mine. Actually, 2 CDs. I figured since I was putting one out, I'd also order some copies of the other one. I still have many of those copies around my house, which is the thing that happens when you get your albums mass produced and don't sell many of them. So they are there for me to keep me warm, I guess, insulating my attic a little. But that was a much different time back in 2007. We were ordering much more in physical. No one was really streaming then. I think iTunes was pretty new at that point as far as like
Hmm.
being a store to download music and buy music from. So I know the trends have changed a lot of the things come and go.
Hmm.
So I guess maybe a good place to start is if you want to tell us a little bit about what you do, because it seems like you have a position that is sort of addressing the changing times in the industry. So I'd love to
Yeah,
hear, yeah, hear from you what this is, what you're doing, and what you guys are
yeah,
faced with.
yeah. In fact, I think this week is my 17th year anniversary with CD Baby. So I've been there a long time. It's seen a lot of change in the industry. I a quick little background about my music career. I was in Nashville studying music and music business at Belmont University, and I met some guys. We were in a band that got signed to a major label. The band's called Smalltown Poets. We're still making music together, um, and we had a decent bit of success. Sold about 300,000 copies. We're nominated for Grammy. Got to do the whole thing, but we were still just flat broke as artists because we
Hmm.
were the last to get paid. And then we all kind of went on a hiatus for a little bit, and that's where I ended up in the Northwest and started writing and recording a ton of music. And that's when I came across CD Baby, thinking there's got to be a better way for artists to um, monetize their fans, just get music to their fans without having all these gatekeepers in the way, which is very much how the old, the major label system works.
Hmm.
Um, and so then, started working at CD Baby and just worked my way up. We were pretty much still in startup mode when I was there. It was more established than just a startup, but that's as far as building out the company. There was lots of business and very few parts inside the building to keep it rolling. So we started growing and expanding different roles. We added a marketing department, and I just worked my way up through that. And um, so now my title is SVP of engagement and education. So really, we split off from the marketing team, and my team really handles a lot of the content marketing that we do, and a lot of the information that we put out there to help artists understand how to move their career forward. Because that era that you mentioned when you were using CD Baby 2007, that might have been one of the sweet spots of like lots of stuff, opportunity opening up for artists, but the complexity still being a little bit narrower. Where now it's just there's so much complexity and how rights work and metadata and
Hmm.
all the different platforms and how they work and monetizing on them, that it's really a lot to navigate. And so we try to help with that as best we can.
Yeah, 2007. So I'm figuring you were there
I
during
was
that
there, yeah.
time. Yeah, because I just did 17 years at my job. So this last week, Valentine's Day, actually. So
We started at the same
yeah,
month.
right. Yeah, it's cool. And so, yeah, when I look back to where I was in 2007 making music, I had a MySpace page.
Yep.
That was social media back then. That was
Yep.
the first time a lot of people got into social media. So you could put your songs on there, but you weren't really. It's nothing like it is today.
Yeah. Yeah.
You had to sort of like it was more your friends and then people that found you.
Yeah.
You can get them to go to your MySpace page, but the discoverability is so different now. In a way, simpler times, but in a way, there are also so many more opportunities now. And I am familiar with a lot of the work you guys are doing, through like your newsletter and the blog. So I subscribe to that, and I'm always devouring anything
Yeah.
that might help in some way. But yeah, I guess that really forces you to keep your finger on the pulse
Hmm.
of the industry and what's happening, what the trends are.
Yeah, and all through that time, I've never stopped writing, recording, and playing music. So, um, I had I've had multiple projects here in the Portland area that were focused on the local scene. I still have the been releasing records with Smalltown Poets. So a lot of the content we make it's at CD Baby is based off real experience. Myself and another person, Chris Robley, he writes a lot of the content as well. So a lot of it is just our very real experience trying things doing the things we're telling people to do, or having success and then writing about it and trying to share with others, or spotting trends, because behind, there's over 1 million artists that use CD Baby. So we see a lot of storylines come through, a lot of people trying things that work, a lot of things that new releasing methods or using new platforms to promote their music. And we get to see a lot of that happening. So it's easy to tap into those stories and help artists understand what they can do to promote their music and reach fans.
Right. And what year was that where you got signed with the band Smalltown Poets?
That was 96. We got signed. The debut album came out in 97.
Oh, okay, cool. So, yeah, right at a very interesting time, right?
Yes, it was actually it was a fun ride. It was a good time in the industry. It was like when the industry was peaking on CD sales. So
Just before Napster, of course. And
yes,
yeah.
it was a good ride. Unfortunately, I still have our recording contract, and it is a horror show of bad rights granting, because it's like they really didn't have to pay us if they didn't want to. That's really basically what it boils down to. And it was pretty standard contract, and so that's why when I left that situation, I was so frustrated, but very passionate about trying to help artists understand that the label is not your answer. The label is like a bank, and
Right.
if you don't deliver, you don't get to make more music. And when you do deliver, you're going to be the last to get paid. So that's where the challenge comes in as an artist, that's out on the road. We were playing lots of shows, and I think one year we played 100. We were a couple years we were averaging about 150 shows.
Wow.
And that was just like big shows. We would do acoustic shows like multiple times a day, every day, pretty much. So it was nonstop and relentless. And the label takes their money first, and there's all these excuses and exceptions that they get to give themselves, so they don't have to give you as much. And then your manager takes 20% or 15% off the top of that. Then by the time you get paid, it's challenging. So
Yeah.
that's where my work with CD Baby and being passionate about like helping artists understand the industry and understand how to approach it in a way. Because while I wouldn't recommend just randomly going to a label, there are times when you need to bring people on board to help your career move forward. And the label deals have definitely evolved drastically since our time on a label. But it's still, you have to understand that at the end of the day, it's your music career. At some point, the label's going to drop you. It's inevitable. Everybody gets dropped at some point. And at that point, you got to understand, do I own this career? Do I own my fans? Or did I just sort of expect them to give me everything and now they're gone? So it really is about leverage and understanding the opportunities and how to get to where you want to be.
Right. Yeah. I think everyone hears of like these record deals for X number of dollars. And it's like, wow. What you don't really understand half the time is that it's a loan. It's
Yes.
like an advance on a book or something. It's
Yes. And my thought process has changed on those over the years, as far as like, I think now if it ever happened again, which it won't, but I'd probably take as much money as they'd possibly give me, knowing this is going to be it. So, but my biggest issue, I think, with label deals now is not being able to own the master recording, because there's so much that you can do when you own the master recording, and with making money and just opportunity to exploit those recordings. It's a big deal when you give up the masters. So you better have a partner that's going to be doing all they can to make sure it has life. And that's the issue I think a lot of artists find, is that only a handful of pieces remain catalog pieces that any label is going to continue to work over time. Most of it will just fall off into obscurity.
right. And then you have no access to it.
Yeah. We've dealt with that with some of our past
Right.
albums.
Yeah, that's got to be difficult. I mean, even, you know, I, remember like reading about Paul McCartney talking about buying back the Beatles songs, and a guy that has the means to do it still, but
Yeah.
it's still kind of heartbreaking. Like, I didn't give anything to get these songs, and it was. It's just funny how that works with intellectual property.
Yeah.
It's a
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
funny thing. So yeah, the times have obviously changed quite a bit. What do you think? Do you think artists are in better position now? Do you think it's because there's like, the gatekeepers are maybe, I don't know, fewer, but you can navigate around them where
Yeah.
you used to just cut it. You
Yeah. And
you
that's yeah, when you speak of the gatekeepers, that was one of the biggest things that frustrated me on a label for our second album, because our first one had done very well. They didn't really give much, you know, they weren't as hands-on on our first album because we hadn't done anything yet, but our first album sold really well. And then I remember them having us record a bunch of songs and then not releasing them because of just a couple people like making decisions whether which is going to work and which isn't. It's like a lot of that mindset is gone these days, and now it's with social platforms that artists are, you know, it's very common on TikTok, and artists post a chorus to a song they wrote, but all they have so far is the chorus. And depending on if it performs well, they'll go write the verses because if it's not going to perform, why spend time writing the rest of the song? So you see a lot of that happening, which I'm not saying is the way to go. I'm just saying it's working for some artists, and that's how they're approaching the market very differently, where the fans or the people who are following along, because they may not even really consider them fans of, someone, they just see them creating music and see it happen in real time and sort of get invited into the feedback process. And that feedback may determine the future outcome of the song. So that's definitely a huge switch with how, like, before gatekeepers would be like, no, this is like the secret lockdown until release day. And now artists are, I somebody who runs social media for, I think it's the Backstreet Boys and Britney Spears. She runs their social media, and she said just the other day at a virtual conference that that she considers the release day the day it gets posted on social, not when it comes out on the streaming services. So
right.
That's definitely a big shift in how people are thinking in releasing music and even producing music. Because I know this is a music production podcast that's like, how much time and effort do you put in perfecting this thing, or do you just see if anyone's going to care from the beginning before you spend that time making that, spending the time and effort, and a lot of times a lot of money producing a studio quality product.
Wow, yeah, it's almost like somebody trying on outfits and posting pictures to see which one gets the most likes, and then
Yeah,
there's the one to
yeah,
go for.
it's weird. There's an artist. I mean, if you're on TikTok, you've probably seen him, but there's an artist called Jake, only the A is spelt with
It's
a V because,
yeah.
yeah. There's a little documentary. I think it's on YouTube. I can't remember where I saw it. I think that Rolling Stone made it. It's like a 20-minute documentary. I
Yeah.
came out of watching that, like, had a love-hate relationship with him. Like, on one hand, the traditionalist in me hated everything I just saw. But the DIY spirit, the do-it-yourself kind of spirit that I've always had, loves everything about it, because it's like, hey, if you just get creative and connect with people, it's about that connection with people and being able to create those moments of that intersects people's day, especially like on social media. It intersects their day. It brings them a moment of happiness or joy when they see. He does a lot of things that I think have that kind of emotional response where it pulls at the heartstrings a little. But it's around music, and it's like, hey, if that's the way that you can connect with people around music and it's working, that's amazing. But yeah, the traditionalist me that goes into a studio and records and makes this work of art goes, I hate everything about that.
I hear you. Yeah, and I know who you're talking about. I saw that video, Rolling Stone or Vice or somebody.
Yeah,
did like
somebody
a,
is this. I think it might have been Vice, but yeah, he was playing a festival, a main stage at a very large festival, and all he had was 3 songs only, literally three songs, all he had ever written. And his TikTok had gone so crazy viral that all his videos, that's the kind of opportunity that unlocked for him. And it's like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it made me think almost like it's a different thing he's doing. You know, it's like your band, right? You guys writing songs,
Yeah.
performing, and then building up the following, getting the deal, putting out an album. But this is it's like this weird kind of hybrid of TikTok personality virality with a song that's catchy, and
Yeah.
maybe even only parts of songs. In his case, I'm not exactly sure.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's just parts a lot of times. Yeah, it is a different thing. And I think that's one thing that's important for people to understand as they approach the market today. When I started, there was one method.
Hmm.
If you didn't get a label, you couldn't afford to record a record. It was just too expensive. Um, the indie at that time, indie music was sort of a negative connotation because it usually meant cheap sounding or low quality, low budget. And I think over time that evolved to be something that was desirable, like this thing that wasn't so pristine. It had more grit and character at times. Uh, but that's what it meant back then because you had no other way of, unless you had very wealthy family or high paying job, you probably weren't spending the money needed to go into a studio and make a high quality record. um, but that was the path everyone was on. Now it's like there's the artists like Jake that are doing that. There's artists that are still doing more of the traditional path. There's artists that have all sorts of like hybrids of what they do based on, there's people that just do cover songs on YouTube and they make uh, a
Hmm.
decent living doing it. So there's all sorts of different paths. And I think it's important for artists to understand that because it's easy to see an artist doing something and have success and assume you should just mimic it. Well, I can tell you after watching Jake's videos, I'm not Jake, nor would I pull that off or would that work for me.
Hmm.
So there's multiple paths and you got to kind of identify what is your method and what's going to work for you, because it's easy to start just chasing all these random things and really get nowhere.
Right. And in a way, it's always been like that, you know? Um, Whenever some band breaks through, some musical act broke through, there was always this kind of echoing of a lot of copycat bands and record
Yeah.
labels like, let's make another band just like those guys, and grunge movement, you know,
Yeah,
whatever it
yes,
is. Like,
grunge comes to mind specifically for that. Suddenly everything was grunge.
yeah, and because it's such a stark contrast to the glam of the
Yes.
80s.
Yes.
Perhaps that's just people got so tired of it or whatever, but yeah, like it was like, let's get in on that. But the format and the medium has really informed the art a lot. Yeah, whether it was like a single for the radio, it needed to be 3 minutes and 30 seconds or whatever it
Hmm.
was. You can't, very few exceptions of like the 7 minute song that ever got played on the radio.
Yep.
You know, American Pie, maybe, or Stairway to Heaven, or like the
Yes.
ones
Yes.
that made that
Yeah.
exception. So I guess, do you feel? I guess I know what you're going to say, but I want to bring this up. Does this cheapen the art at all, or does it expand it, or maybe a little bit of both? Does it take away from what that thing that we were all trying to do, writing these songs, writing these albums? How do you personally feel about that?
Yeah. I think. Um. Well, I mean, we haven't even talked about AI music's uh, websites. So, I mean, talk about cheapening the platform or cheapening the art form. I think there's a lot of that going on. But I don't know. The way I look at it is as an artist, there's two things that you have to be aware of is like part of it's your own journey as an artist. And usually that journey is motivated by stuff that's talents and expression and things that you just, it doesn't matter what I do, I keep writing more music and playing the guitar, and it's just like I'm always going to do that. So
Mhm.
it's just something inside of me that motivates me to do that. It's a part of who I am. It's part of um, I as a person, I feel like I always need to be creating, whether it's music or other ideas and things like that. So there's that piece where it's like part of this as an artist is your own expression. Then there's the other part where it's about making things that other people will want to listen to and the whole commerce side of it. So I think a lot of the stuff we see on socials and things like that, those are trends that come and go and are more about that commerce side of it. I think on the artist side, you need to, the people that are going to have longevity in the music space are people that really know how to grow and nurture that and make something special and continue to create things that are unique and authentic. Because I think the in the music space, it's going to be easier and easier, with especially all the AI stuff popping up for anyone to just push a button and churn out any old track that sounds okay.
Mhm.
But as an artist, having that unique humanity in your music is going to be, I think, one of the things that sets you apart.
Mhm.
And I don't know, maybe we'll go back to the days of like 2-inch tape and no auto tune and down with technology, like a revolt against technology because the technology can make anything it wants, but only people can get in a room and make music together that happens in that moment.
Well, I think there's a bit of that. I mean, even on a personal level, sometimes I pick up my acoustic guitar and I can't even believe it. It's like it feels like a futuristic technology because I didn't have to plug it in. I didn't need batteries. I didn't need to do the Bluetooth or,
Yeah,
it
I know.
it
It's like
just
this one
works.
just works.
It's amazing, And when we're thinking about like AI and humanity and stuff, I remember Jake. I saw that video. I think two different periods, and I think one that just came up, and then another time was for another podcast that it came up. I don't remember his songs, but I do remember him,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
I think there's AI music, and there was that like really bad failed AI rapper that they came out with a
Yes, I
couple of
remember that. Yes.
that like no one bought that. And
Yeah. That was yeah.
that felt like a win for humanity in my eyes. Like, thank you everyone for not just like falling for this obviously contrived thing, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
so good. We're not that far gone yet. But I don't see AI selling kids like flannel shirts to go back to grunge, or like changing like to ripped jeans or tight jeans and emo, wearing the hair over their face, like what's happening in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
Those are the human things, the people, the story. And I have students. I was a student today talking about Taylor Swift and why she loves Taylor Swift so much, and she didn't say anything about the music.
Hmm.
She talked about her and her story, and a lot of her story she knows through the music. But it was this person and how she's helped her get through her life,
Hmm.
and nothing about that if she auto-tuned or if she had songwriting partners or all those things that we can sometimes get caught up with. But it's just like her, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know that the computer offers that at this point.
No, it doesn't. It does. I think the bigger threat for the immediate threat is not as the artist and being and the unique capabilities an individual brings and the humanist, but the idea that you can just instantly flood a market full of
Hmm.
passable tracks
Right.
that then squash, just kind of, it's already a very um crowded marketplace, and then you add layers and layers of that on top of it. I think there's it's more of concern for some segments, but yeah, when it comes down to it, a lot of what those people are there for are those that artist and their story, and they connect with it on that level.
in that thinking, the saturated market of that was one thing I was getting at with the beauty of the gatekeepers being gone. The other side of that is that anybody can put out music, and it's so hard to get through the noise. Maybe the hope, maybe something nice that could happen would be that, like you said, we might go back to this like analog 2-inch thing. We want to see them play it live without any
Mhm.
kind of anything assisting them. Maybe the generic music that we'll get from AI will sort of wash away the generic music being created just
Yeah.
for the third wave grunge band that comes out to cash in, or whatever the next, thing that happens, that there'll be no place for that kind of mimicry and regurgitation.
That's possible. Anything's. I at this point in my life, I've seen a lot that I thought would never happen, so it's possible.
Me too. I wonder. I I've had to explain the concept of selling out to like younger students, because they don't get it. Like, what do you mean selling? Well, they got to make money for something. Like, what do you expect them to do? And on one level, I feel almost like an idiot when they say it that way, because, like, I mean, you're kind of right, but they don't understand that aesthetic that I'm sure you can still relate to as someone growing up around seemingly about the same time as me. Is that we had that thing. We saw like the fraud. We saw through the commercial, you know,
Yeah.
efforts. Like,
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I'm 48, so I was born in the 70s, grew up in the 80s and 90s and all that. So it's pretty amazing to go back and see the difference in how much music is was used back then compared to now. Yes, music was in commercials and things, but it was really in the 90s and early 2000s when like all that just exploded and it becoming so important for like brands to have the right song in their commercial that taps into the right audience. And so yeah, there was this moment where there might be the one popular artist that gets used in a commercial, but now it's all popular artists in commercials. And so, yes,
right.
there was like, you're a sellout if you take money from BMW for your music. And now it's just considered normal.
Yeah.
And it's even funny because the Beastie Boys, I hear them everywhere now, sync placed with sync licensing and in TVs and TV shows and commercials and movies. And they used to be like the big, we will not sell out people.
Mm,
So yeah, it just all changes. Which to me, I think part of that was the idea of guarding some sort of cultural identity for a group. Meaning like one of the things that I'm curious about to see, kind of along the lines of what you're talking about is like, will there ever be those moments again? I remember my senior year in high school, Smells Like Teen Spirit debuted on MTV that Sunday, and literally by Wednesday, everyone was throwing away their hair metal band records, and that was all stupid and dumb. And by the weekend, Nirvana was everything everyone was talking about. And
mm,
to see that play out like in real time that quickly because uh, everyone was sort of on the same page of how we were consuming music and getting it from the same outlets. That I don't know if those type of moments will happen again. It's weird to think about like where everybody like grunge just takes over.
mm,
Um, Everyone's sort of on their own page musically based on what algorithms they're feeding them, and I not only changes the experience as a fan, but I think it also changes the experience of how people create music because you're not really in like I mentioned the Beastie Boys. The documentary about them on Apple TV is great.
mm,
And it's really time and place was really important for their story and the whole story of hip hop that
right.
was emerging from Brooklyn at the time, which is similar to like the whole story of grunge that was emerging from Seattle. We had a whole sort of music thing happen here in Portland in the early 2000s, and I just
Mm.
sort of wondered, will that those things ever happen again in the same way?
Well, we're not all watching the same thing Thursday
Yeah.
night, and we're not
Yes,
all
exactly.
getting
That
the
we
same
we were all
funnel.
so much on the same page culturally
Yeah.
as far as like entertainment that that's just not the case anymore.
Yeah. Everything is really personalized, isolated, and it's something I think about because I don't know that we watched like less TV than a lot of people do with screen time or computer time, but we all watched the same TV.
Yeah.
If you're in your living room, everyone was looking at the same thing, and now everyone's looking at their own thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it might be the cost. You can find your little slice and sliver of the world, but the movements, yeah, I wonder. Wonder what like we might look back, right, like 100 years from now. That was the last time culture moved together.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting to have the age I am have grown up without cell phones, without the internet.
Yeah,
It all that started landing when I was in college and didn't really become useful until after I was out of college. But it's like, how did I even find people?
I know.
I remember having to use maps and things and just know how to get around places or realize that there's all pockets of areas that you missed because you just never knew about them.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and you can call up anything you want now. You can have some fun conversations with younger people now, just telling them like, you used to have to call your friend's house, or that girl you like, you had to call her house, and
Yeah.
sometimes her dad would answer, you know, like, and like what? But then they like, can't understand how like babies were ever made before. Like, how did you get past that? Yeah, it's funny. It's an interesting world. But it's cool that you guys are out there, not only sharing this stuff, but, testing it out yourself and seeing what works, sharing that with people because,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a big part of what we're doing. Um, and even, writing and recording. I was just in Kansas City for work for a Folk Alliance conference, and we got a recording studio while we were there. And my coworker, Chris, he was working on a project, and then we were recording with another artist and playing on her record. So yeah, just trying to stay in it as much as possible and yeah, keep the dream alive because
right.
that's how I am. I've always been, it's like you never know what could happen. The great thing about music is you just never know what could happen. Something can hit at any time and it can be pretty life-changing. And it's kind of a fun thing to experience when it happens.
Yep, it is. It's part of the magic, right? I think we'll still have some of those moments. Things have happened on different levels, I guess, but, I think maybe like the ripples don't last as long, but
Yeah.
we do get once in a while something like boom, this thing happened, and then it's almost gone like by Thursday. But it's who knows? We shall see.
Yep.
Where can we tell people to go to check out some of the work you're doing?
Well, for CD Baby, you can check out the DIY Musician podcast. We've been podcasting for a long, long time. Since this is a podcast we're on right now, your
Yeah, it's
listeners
a
might
good one.
enjoy
Yeah.
might enjoy that one. We have the DIY Musician blog, which is just DIYmusician.com, which has a lot of the advice and stuff that we talk about on the podcast, but has it in written form. And if you have music you want to distribute, check out cdbaby.com. And if you want to connect with me personally, I'm on the socials. I'm at K Breuner on Instagram and TikTok, and I've posted a lot of my own videos there, just trying to help artists with quick marketing tips and industry advice, and yeah, just sharing my experience along the
Right.
way.
Cool. And you said Smalltown Poets are still active.
Yeah, you can find us on all the platforms. So yeah, we have 10 albums out
Nice.
and some singles sprinkled in throughout there as well.
Very good. Well, I know we're nearing our time here, so I don't want to keep you too long, but it's been a lot of fun talking to you. And interesting to just not only like reflect, but also try to then extrapolate into the future to see It's an exciting time. I mean, if you think
Yeah.
of all the stuff that's happened, and like I mentioned 2007, like it's totally different. It's insane. It's and like tomorrow I feel like it's going to be 10 times different than today. Just
Yeah, it seems like change is accelerating,
yeah,
and
the rate of it is just faster and faster, which I think is promising for people that are, inventive and creative about not just their music but how they put it out there and how they share it with the world.
yeah, yeah, that's going to continue to change. So,
Right. Well, maybe after the next change, we'll touch base again and
all right, yeah,
see what's
absolutely,
happening.
yeah,
All right.
absolutely,
Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it.
yeah. Thanks for having me.
And thanks to the folks listening. It's great to have you. And check out Kevin's work. Check out the DIY podcast, DIYmusician.com. They're both great. I consume material from you guys all the time, and it's inspiring and helpful. So I appreciate
Thank
what
you.
you're doing. And thank you all for listening. Hey, if you enjoyed the Music Production Podcast, please consider giving it a review on your favorite podcast provider and share it with a friend, somebody that you think might enjoy the show and get something out of it. That would mean a lot to me. And if you want to check out more of my work, including sound packs, tutorials, etc., head over to brianfunk.com. Thanks so much for listening and have a great day.